Welcome. Today's talk is about how to stop beating yourself up with criticism and living from a place of loving yourself. And as usual, I want to start with 3 quotes. I'm Reverend Jayne Coley, and let's get started. So the first quote is, talk to yourself like you would to someone you love. Anonymous. The second one, love creates tolerance and human understanding, without which we become really divided against ourselves, and without which we almost unconsciously become filled with criticism, condemnation, and false judgment. Ernest Holmes. Imagine if we obsessed about the things we love about ourselves. I love that one. Another anonymous. Why did I pick this topic of how you can stop beating yourself up with criticism and live from a place of loving yourself? Well, once again, my teenagers provided me with some exceptional material in the last week, and I realized that I myself need to have that opportunity so that I can see where I need to love myself more and stop criticizing myself as much. The other day, it was a perfect example. My daughter got her hair cut, and I had made the suggestion, you might want to get a trim before you go back to school. Well, unfortunately, a trim to the hairdresser was not the same trim that my daughter was looking for. My daughter freaked out that she had cut too much hair off, and I was the one to blame. It was my fault that I had made the suggestion for her to get her hair cut. Well, for the probably the first hour, I realized that I was taking on all this criticism and blame that she was saying. And then I started feeling like crap. And I'm like, I've had enough of this. I'm going to call my prayer partner. So I called up my prayer partner, who's 81 years old and has had 5 children. And she set me straight. She goes, Janie, she goes, you might want to give yourself some love and let your daughter cool off. When I got off the phone, I realized that I needed to love myself and that I needed to set some boundaries. I'm choosing to learn that I've been a helicopter mom as my kids, I've been raising my kids. And this creates a lot of anxiety for me. And I don't want that. I want quite the opposite. I want more love, more joy, more playfulness, and more peace in my life. And I realized last night that where my daughter tried to blame me for something, there were 5 more incidents I realized last night over the last week. I could just be constantly taking it in, and I'm not going to. I love myself that I'm setting the boundary. And as a result of being more conscious of self-love through those boundaries, I'm not going to take on other people's. And I know that for me, I sleep fitfully when I don't take on other people's stuff. And my mind's been peaceful for the last week since I've been doing this talk. So I need to be thanking you for even being able to bring this forth. The benefits of self-love are so many. Loving yourself, you become a magnet for more love. I also realized that it's part of our spiritual nature to be loving. And it means that we're attuning to our divine nature when we come from a place of love rather than criticism. And the more we love ourselves, the less we tolerate poor behavior from others where they're trying to blame us, and the more we set boundaries. For me, self-love keeps me in the spirit of creativity as well. When I do a talk and I'm writing it out, I don't censor it. I just go with the flow. And I realize that when you're being critical, you can't stop and correct your first draft. And this is the same thing. Criticism stifles our creativity. And for me, it's great to have a creative mind, and that's great when you're doing the editing part. But not when you're in the mode of generating your first draft or you're getting your talk together. It's important to know when to turn on the critical mind and when it is not necessary. Taking on others' blame, not necessary. Whether it's a bad haircut or you get on the scales and you go, oh my gosh, do I really weigh this? Or overeating and you ate another whatever bonbon. Or you've done something daft. I'm sure we've all done that. I'm learning that it's important not to beat myself up because criticism only creates that anxiety and I have this great quote, and it says, never go tapping into the lives of others like you know them and their story. Their story is not your story. Tell yours, for that is all you know. Alik Ice is the person who did that. So I'm learning to love myself, and in my not so shiny moments, I'm also learning. In the past, I'd beat myself up, I'd stay up half the night, my stomach would be all turning, I'd be solving everyone's story during the night whenever there was a teenage blow up. And then the next day, I'd be tired from not getting enough sleep. I'd notice that I'd be sluggish, I'd be cranky, and I would not want to connect with anyone because I was still too busy trying to figure everything out without God. And this isn't good for my health, my attitude, or the flow of creativity. Being critical stops. It even stops the flow with my clients. So for me, everything slows down when I'm critical. And thank goodness for Science of Mind, because I know that even if I do get critical, that I have a choice. I have a choice in that moment to keep staying in the drama or to choose to love myself and not be engaged in that critical comments that are sent my way. I'd much rather choose to benefit from loving myself and having a good night's sleep and waking up cheerful and staying in the flow with clients and cash flow and have great health. Abraham Lincoln learned how to love himself in spite of his repeated failures. He had some pretty big failures. He had several businesses that failed. He had 2 bankruptcies. He had 6 election campaigns that he lost. He had plenty to be critical about. He learned self-love and went on to be the president. We talk so much in Science of Mind about whatever we focus our intention on, our attention on shows up every moment of every day. We have a choice. So the question is, if we have a choice, how can we see ourselves, and how do we see ourselves, and how do we show up? Are we being critical to ourselves? What if we went around saying, talk to yourself like you would to someone you love? What if we really did talk to ourselves like somebody that we love? Or imagine if we really did obsess over the things that we love about ourselves. I could easily have allowed myself to come from a place and get all self-righteous with my daughter and say, you know, you can't blame me, I didn't even cut your hair, and go on and say all these things that it wasn't my fault. But what would be the point? She was hurting. I stayed present in the moment and didn't take it on. Her emotions are not my emotions. You know, there's another downside of being critical. It fosters this sense of duality. And so I want to utilize this acronym called DUAL. And so the first letter of DUAL, D-U-A-L, is duality. And when I'm in this critical mode, I know that I'm seeing things from this place of 2 opposites, good, bad, wrong, right. I'm seeing one person's right, one's wrong. And that is, for me, keeps me in that dualistic perspective. And when I move out of that into a place of awareness, this takes me into the next letter of DUAL, which is the U, understand. Understand. So instead of judging myself, I've started to look within to understand what is really going on here. And for me, I'm learning that in order for me to thrive and to have a healthy attitude, I can't keep criticizing myself or others. And this means whether I say it out loud or not, because sometimes there's little tapes going on inside and I'm still saying it and I just haven't voiced it. So otherwise, I also stay up all night tossing and turning. So I'm choosing to understand it, the second letter of DUAL. The third level is when you move on to the A of DUAL, which is to accept. And I accept the fact that there's going to be critical moments, whether I'm saying them to myself or to others, and I have a choice every moment to stop the criticism and to love myself. So that's the A. The L in DUAL is for love. As I accept myself and others as they are, I can't change them. I can only change me. And I'm realizing it's best for me to just get on loving me, like my prayer partner said. So why practice self-love? Well, here's some of the reasons. Well, when you practice self-love, you have a friend 24/7. I notice that when I love myself, I make healthier choices. I might occasionally take in a snack, but I do it in moderation because I love my body and I care to nurture it. I also notice that when I'm self-loving myself, I'm glowing, I'm vibrant, and people have been saying that to me lately this last week, so I'm going to keep up with the self-love. Plus, there's this inner peace that comes with self-love. It's like it soothes the soul. So the word dual, the acronym, D for duality, U for understand, A for accept, and L for love, self-love. I'm choosing to come from this place of love, and I practiced some of these self-love practices in this last week, and one was I'm driving down the road and my son goes, "Mom, what are you saying to that driver?" And I realized I was being critical of the driver, and I immediately stopped and said, "Oh, thank you for pointing that out." And I realized I understood, I saw what was going on, I accepted it, and then I came from a place of self-love and I blessed the other driver. Another one was I was driving down the hill, and this time I had my daughter, and I noticed somebody that was dressed really out there. And I went to make a comment, and I stopped myself, and I thought, what could I see that was beautiful in this person? So I came from my divine nature. So I would like to invite you this week to just open your heart and come from that place of loving yourself first, and then others. Notice those moments and flip around the criticism, because the self-love is really where it's at. And I want to close with this quote and have us all repeat it 3 times. Today I come and I choose to come from a place of love. Today I choose to come from a place of love. Today I choose to come from a place of love. Thank you. I love you. Have a blessed day.
You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God.